people were raised with the 07 and 2011 Super Bowl teams, where we could consistently apply pressure with 4. All right, and that is the goal. I mean, that's what you want. But you can't manufacture it, and again, you can't overpay for it. What it really comes down to is it's not about who gets the sacks, it's about how many sacks you actually get, and really how much pressure you apply. That's what it's about.
Dave Gettleman, Giants GM. It's about having guys who can create the sacks. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. He's trying to keep using words until he feels good about his strategy, whatever it may be, for stocking his defensive line. But when they did win a pair of Super Bowls and he was there working in the front office, they did it because they had 2 things. They had a great pass rush, and they had a very good offensive line that worked well together and stayed healthy. And it's almost like, I mean, at least they're paying attention to the urgency to have that, because I feel like since they won their last Super Bowl, they've just kind of forgotten that those are the key ingredients. And yeah, every once in a while you'll see them try to improve, but they don't have that consistency and they're not building. I think this is something that you craft through the draft, not through free agency, but you have to have a sustained period of time where you are hitting on your draft picks who play guard, tackle, center, defensive end, defensive tackle, Big Cat.
You're absolutely right. You build from within there, and inside out is how you build the team. And missing on any draft picks just kills. It can kill the future of a franchise. When you have these spots, you look around. It's a very hard thing to do, but when you have these spots where you have a draft class where multiple guys didn't pan out, that sets you back. That's hard to recover from when you're trying to build something long term with the cap and, talented players along both lines.
And, it's a combination of not hitting on your draft picks, not developing your draft picks. When you're throwing a coach overboard every other year, maybe you're not going to develop those draft picks the way they could be developed. That's why it's important to have continuity and consistency. And I feel like the Giants have been just kind of caught in this. We don't really know quite what to do. They held on to Tom Coughlin maybe for too long. Then they got rid of Ben McAdoo too quickly, even though, they shouldn't have hired him in the first place. And then they move on from Pat Shurmur too quickly, even though they shouldn't have hired him in the first place. And I feel like a couple of years from now, we're going to be saying they got rid of Joe Judge too quickly, even though they shouldn't have hired him in the first place. And I think that's a problem as well. When you don't have a coach who puts a staff in place that can get these guys who maybe elsewhere would become Pro Bowlers. With you're not getting them to their full degree because your program is just toxic from top to bottom.
Yes, absolutely. And it's I feel like there's a crossroad for a bunch of teams in this draft, and the Giants definitely are one of them, especially once you answer that question, like, here is our guy that we're going to be committing to in terms of the quarterback position. Here's Daniel Jones. Now you can go, because wouldn't you say, Mike, like a team like the Bengals, like they're not at a crossroads. They know they need a quarterback. They're going to draft, Joe Burrow. A team like the Dolphins, they know they need a quarterback. They're going to draft Justin Herbert or Tua. It's the teams that have, quote unquote, their guy and have to figure out, one, is this really going to be the guy going forward? And how do we maximize this guy? Because you've seen it time and time again. A lot of teams are saying we need to get a guy as a quarterback who's on that first, 5-year deal where he's a little bit cheaper than he'll be in the latter part of his career, and try to build around that when we have that window. And trying to fit that window what the Giants are in right now. If Daniel Jones is the guy and he is their franchise quarterback, it's going to be up to these next 3 years to try to build an entire roster around Daniel Jones before you might, which is a good problem to have, pay him a lot of money because he's a great quarterback.
Yeah, and that's why when Dave Gettleman says we're not going to overpay for pass rush, and, look, Jadeveon Clowney's floating around out there, and I know there are concerns about his health, but why wouldn't you go ahead and overpay now? When you aren't paying Daniel Jones all that much, when you aren't paying Saquon Barkley all that much relative to what you're going to be paying him before too long. Why not? If you don't have the guys who are already in the building who give you the pass rush you need, and your only option is free agency and there's a guy out there, why not pay him a little bit more when you have the luxury to do so?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. This is the window. This is the time to build up on your defense. And hope that Daniel Jones is the guy so that you can then say, hey, it was good that we invested in our defense when we can. Now we can flip the script if he ends up being a great quarterback and you want to pay him.
In 2007, they had Michael Strahan, O.C.U. Manura, Fred Robbins, and Barry Cofield as the front four. Justin Tuck wasn't even a starter. He ended up having a great game in Super Bowl 42 when the Giants beat the Patriots. But it takes time to build that defensive line, and you need to commit the resources to it, the draft picks to it, sometimes free agency. Fred Robbins was a guy that the Giants had signed from the Vikings. I mean, you have to make the right moves. You put it all together, and you prioritize it. That's the thing. Quarterback and pass rush are the two things that I think every team should prioritize. And it's astounding to me how quickly we just kind of collectively forget how important the pass rush is. And then somebody wins a Super Bowl with a great pass rush, and we're like, oh, yeah, pass rush is pretty damn important. And then everybody prioritizes it again.
And this is also, not to really, stick it to Giants fans here, but this is where the debate about Saquon Barkley comes to play. Because Saquon Barkley is a great talent, and I expect him to be a very good running back for, however long running backs can kind of stay in that zone, which is, right before they're 30 years old, right? But at the end of the day, drafting a running back as high as they did, it's just a waste of a resource. And we had the discussion earlier this week when you have Christian McCaffrey getting the highest paid contract for a running back in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey is a fantastic player. He's the only player who is ever in the NFL history to start his career first 3 years, 2,500 yards rushing, 2,500 yards receiving. But you still probably shouldn't pay him that much money because it's a position that you can get maybe 80% of that value at a lot cheaper than what Christian McCaffrey is going to be going forward.
Barkley, the second overall pick in 2018. Bradley Chubb was still on the board at the time. He went fifth overall to the Broncos. Now he tore an ACL last year, but he was great as a rookie. He threatened Javon Curse's single-season rookie sack record. And as to your point of staying power, when I had the roster up for the Giants in 2007 when they won Super Bowl 42, that was Michael Strahan's final season. He walked off into the sunset. I did a double take when I saw that he had been drafted in 1993. Get a defensive lineman like that. Now, look, Michael Strahan's an exception, but there's no running back that's going to hang around with you from 1993 till 2007. And they burn bright, and then they're done. You get a good defensive end like that, and maybe he can make it longer than a decade, and he can be one of those pieces as every year you try to get that magical combination of four guys and maybe a fifth guy off the bench who can wreak havoc on an opposing offensive line. That's part of it. And that's why when you do have that top 5 pick, and this is something you need to keep in mind this year with the 4th overall pick, you need to be thinking about those building block players who are going to be there for more than 10 years.
Yep, absolutely. I think we should probably be GMs now that I've talked this out with you.
You're selling yourself short by being the offensive coordinator at Florida State in the video game that you are streaming on Twitch every night to 18,000 fans, and I have a feeling it's going to keep going up and up. All right, we're going to take a break.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.